Europe and the United States are stepping up the pressure on Iran over the brutal crackdown on nationwide anti-government protests. The European Union today listed the Iranian Revolutionary Guard as a terror group, and it sanctioned senior figures in the Islamic regime. The EU's top diplomat, Kaja Kallas, says that thousands of demonstrators have been killed and that repression cannot go unanswered.
In Iran, horrific crackdown on protesters has come at a heavy human cost. The EU already has sweeping sanctions in place, and today ministers agreed to designate Iran Revolutionary Guard as a terrorist organization. This will put them on the same footing with Daesh, Hamas, Hezbollah, Al-Qaeda. Those who operate through terror must be treated as terrorists.
All right, I want to go now to our Brussels correspondent, Tessa Walter. She's at the European Council headquarters for us for this meeting of foreign ministers. Tessa, can you give us more details about the measures that are being taken against the regime in Iran?
Yes, two important things happened today. So we have seen the unanimous decision to put sanctions on entities and individuals of Iran responding to the brutal crackdown of anti-government protesters in the country. And secondly, you mentioned it, there is now the listing of the Revolutionary Guards as a foreign terrorist organization. This has been ongoing for years. Many member states have been pushing to put the organization on this list, and really only the brutal crackdown of the last weeks has put everyone here at the table to actually join this motion and now actually put it in action. Why did they do this? Well, they want to send a signal to Iran. They want to tell the regime, you cannot continue like this. We have some sources here in Brussels telling us that over 20,000 people have been killed on the streets. So the EU wants to tell the regime, do not continue like this, otherwise there will be collective repercussions, there will be reactions to it.
And Tessa, what will the classification of terrorist group by the EU, what will that mean for the Revolutionary Guard? I mean, what will change, if anything?
It means three things concretely. Firstly, there is a travel ban in place, meaning any members of the organization can no longer enter the bloc, and there are visa restrictions that now apply. Secondly, making business with the organization or any of its members will become impossible and will be heavily criminalized. And thirdly, and this is probably most important for the organization, frozen bank accounts. So any money that is lying here in the European Union will now no longer be able to be accessed by the organization. And why is it doing this? Well, one big goal, drying out any possible lifelines that are going from Europe to Iran, making it harder for the organization to act in the future.
You know, one could argue that we've seen this before. The United States has already done this, and the regime is still there. So to what extent can Brussels' influence, the European Union's influence, how can it really influence what is happening inside Iran?
That is definitely the question critics here on the ground argue and are telling us. Iran is already one of the countries in the world that is heavily sanctioned, it being for its human rights violations or also its nuclear program. So adding more sanctions to it, in what way will this change? But the counter-argument is, what else can Europe do? Military action, as it is considered by the US, is definitely not on the agenda here. So really, these sanctions were the biggest tool in its toolbox, diplomats tell us. If it will change something for the people on the ground, well, that we will probably only see in the next weeks and months to come.
All right, DW's Tessa Walter with the latest from Brussels tonight. Tessa, as always, thank you.
Right, DW's Brussels correspondent Terry Schultz is at the European Council headquarters for the meeting of foreign ministers. Terry, good to see you. We have some detail. Tell us a little more, if you would, about these measures being taken against the Iranian regime today.
That's right. The EU is seeking to influence the Iranian regime in a couple of different ways today. As you mentioned, there are individuals and entities who are going to be put on the sanctions list. These are people and organizations believed to be responsible for planning and carrying out this very brutal crackdown on anti-government protesters that you've just been discussing with our guest. At the same time, they are going to put the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, the IRGC, on the foreign terrorist organization list. Now, there have been members of the Guard Corps put under individual sanctions before, but the EU very much hopes that by putting the entire IRGC on the terror list, it sends a message to those decision makers in the Iranian regime that there is collective punishment for these actions that they're taking, hoping to make them rethink this brutal path they're on right now.
What do these sanctions, Terry, and the classification of a terrorist group by the EU mean to the Revolutionary Guard? What functionally changes here?
Well, we're not sure how many bank accounts they may have in Europe or how much business they're doing with the EU at the moment. But what it does is freeze any financial assets and bank accounts that may be located in an EU country. It will put a visa ban on any members of the IRGC that can be identified. And it also criminalizes any commercial activity with them. They're very much hoping to cut off any financial or other support lifelines that the IRGC is getting from Europe at the moment.
And does the EU hold much sway here, Terry? To what extent can the bloc change or influence what happens in Iran at this point?
That remains to be seen because Iran is one of the most highly sanctioned countries in the world, whether that's been for human rights repression in the past or for its nuclear activities. And we still see the regime behaving as it is now. So I think it's an open question whether this is going to work. But the EU is not going to launch military attacks on Iran, as the U.S. is now considering doing again. So if you use diplomatic speak, this is the strongest tool it has in its toolbox. And I should mention that some of the other people coming under sanctions today are those believed to be helping Iran supply Russia with missiles and other military support for its war on Ukraine. So they're very much hoping that they can have some influence on Iran that way by cutting off, again, financial support, its financial lifelines, perhaps its supply chains to help Russia with its war on Ukraine. So I think they've got their fingers crossed, Anthony.
Terry, we'll leave it there for now. DW's Terry Schultz in Brussels. Thanks so much.